Call to order. Adoption of agenda. 2.1 recommendation.
That council adopt the agenda as presented.
Can I get a seconder?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Adoption of minutes. 3.1 recommendation.
That council adopt the minutes from the special council meeting held on March 30th, 2020 as presented.
Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? 3.2 recommendation.
That council adopt the minutes from the regular council meeting held on April 1st, 2020.
Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Introduction of late items. We have a letter from a resident here concerning about the change of the bylaw for the chickens. That will be 6.2. Okay, and public hearing none, delegation 6.1 recommendation. Is she on the phone?
Yeah, we got the number, your worship.
Yeah.
We got the number there,
So we're gonna call her
we'll give
now?
her a call.
Do you want
Who's going?
That
Matthew, go
council-
ahead.
to hear the delegation from Danelle Helma by phone? She would like to talk to council about chickens in Pouce, Coupe.
Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Discussion.
Hello.
Hi. Janelle?
Hello.
How are you? It's the mayor of Pouce, Coupe, and we have Marlene and Ken and the CAO and Skylar, our secretary, here with us
Hi.
tonight. And you want to talk about your chickens?
I would. I'd like to propose a bylaw in Pouce Coupe regarding backyard hens. I have a business that I'm starting up, and I've had a few people from Pouce ask me about it, and they're not allowed to have them yet. So that's what I would like to talk about.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm offering a little chicken coop that just goes in their yard and they can move it around every day so that the hens get new grass every day. I think the benefits of having this is obviously the fresh eggs, and it's good for your yard. The hens will aerate and eat your bugs. Yes?
Okay. We're good. We're here. We're just listening to you.
Okay, sorry, I thought someone had a question.
No.
They're really good for all your compost. You can send that outside and feed it to them. They're happy with that. And I would like that to happen. I don't know what else to tell you.
So you have a business plan in place?
I have a business plan, yes, in place.
In place. Okay.
Yes.
So are these chickens going to be vaccinated for flu-like symptoms or anything like
All
that?
of my chickens that I get are vaccinated before I even get them.
Okay. And you have documentation stating that they will be vaccinated?
I believe, yes, I would have documentation saying that they're vaccinated.
Okay, how much per chicken?
So I rent the whole thing out, and it's $400 to rent 2 hens from May to October.
Okay.
And that's all I'm offering right now. I do have a sign up that says I will offer 4 hens, but the dimensions of my chicken coop don't actually meet the dimensions of Dawson Creek's regulatory size.
Too big or too small?
Mine is too small for 4 hens.
Okay.
Because they say that they need 2 square meters per hen. Oh no, 1 square meter per hen, sorry.
Okay.
Which is a lot of space per chicken. They really don't need that much space, but if that's the rule, that's the rule, and I'll follow it.
So are you selling your chickens or renting your chickens out in Dawson Creek?
I have not rented any yet, but I have a lot of people interested. And when I do in Dawson Creek, I will
Any questions?
What kind of chickens?
What kind of chickens?
I have several different kinds. I have Barred Rock, I have Isa Brown, I have some Americanas, and I have some multi, like just regular ones that are white.
Oh, okay.
Leghorns.
Yeah.
Any Chanticleers?
Pardon me?
Any Chanticleers?
No.
Okay. Any other
I
questions?
have one person in Grand Prairie who was actually renting 6 hens from me, and I have quite a few people from on farms who don't want to winter their hens though over the summer or over the winter, and so they have contacted me and they want to rent just the chickens without the coop. So
Okay.
that has nothing to do with the Pouce laws, but I just think it's actually something that could take off.
It's just, we gotta look at the prices of, how much it's gonna cost for staff to change the bylaw and council to approve it. And then it also, how much is our bylaw officer gonna be charging us to look after and make sure that these people are looking after these chickens and taking care of them.
So the Dawson Creek bylaw costs or the license to have them costs $25. The bylaw officer comes out, approves one of the coops, and then you're good to go as long as they buy the license.
Oh, okay.
That's Dawson Creek though. I don't know if you guys would like to follow suit or.
Well, we generally do take some of their information off the bylaws and then we write what we want.
Yeah.
Money, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, well, we're not a full house with council right now, so we can't really make a firm decision on this, but we will
Okay.
bring it back when our rest of our councilors are here.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you for phoning in and giving us this information.
And thank you for taking my time or taking up, letting me take your time.
We know what you mean. Have a good night.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi.
Unfinished business arising from the minutes. 7.1 recommendation.
That counts.
Oh, sorry, we have a 6.2 letter from chickens within the village limits.
Read on there.
Just read the letter concerning the
The
chickens.
entire letter?
No, just read what you,
Oh, chickens within village limits?
Chris?
No, I was just gonna, maybe add, your worship, yeah, the person who wrote the letter, found out that, this delegation was happening tonight and they just wanted to voice opposition to the idea, so. The Mrs. Halma's business proposition is interesting, but I'm actually struggling to figure out a way right now about how we amend the bylaw to just permit one person to have that business. I'm not sure we'd be able to do that because generally the bylaws apply to everyone in town, so.
Does she live here? Where does she live? I should have asked her.
I'm not sure, your worship, yeah.
So she would have the business license for here.
Yeah, but I don't know how we would craft the, sort of the bylaw piece of it to say, well, you can have 2 rented chickens, but you can't have any of your own, so to speak, and I'd have to give that some thought.
Some homework.
Yeah.
But we don't have other counselors here to.
No.
To discuss it.
And there's nothing, there's nothing in the animal control bylaw now, so I wouldn't worry too much about the policing piece of it. I mean, part of the bylaw officer's role is to, police the bylaws that council sets, so this would just be, I wouldn't think there'd be any additional cost per se to do that.
But it would be cost for the village to change the bylaw.
Yeah, that piece.
So that's to take into consideration too.
Yeah.
Right?
I think they're a wonderful pet, even. They're considered pets. They can be considered pets.
My concern, Ken, is the only thing is that we have yards here that need to be really, really cleaned up.
Yeah.
And right now, if people want to have disgusting yards, I'm not pushing for the chickens.
Well, you know what? I don't think it's any different than having a cat that goes scratching into someone else's flower bed and spraying all over the place, or a dog that's out yakking all hours of the day inside the property. I mean, I just think we have to be so careful. I mean, we're here as a council, we're to provide general guidance. But I think we gotta be very careful. You know, we're not a communistic society. People
No,
should
but
have
if you
the
want a
right to
junk,
do what they
junkyard,
wanna
if
do.
you want a junkyard in the village of Pouce, Coupe, I suggest you move out of the boundaries. Because we have bylaws for cleaned yards.
And the chickens are proven to clean the yard, the grass and fertilize it.
Well, that's
You know,
what she
there's some-
said,
yeah,
but,
there's some really positive aspects to having chickens.
I don't
I'm
want
just
chicken
not
house
opposed to
beside
this
my house.
concept. I'm not opposed to the concept. You're teaching kids about something that's essential during this time, right? We can't get toilet paper, we can't get yeast, we can't get hand sanitizer. Producers are getting unable to ship their stuff, and now you're gonna say, hey, I have potential of giving my kids eggs for breakfast during the morning. Well, that's a great thing. Well, but the bylaw says you can't. Well, you know what, screw the bylaw. That's,
We have to rewrite the bylaw.
I'm sorry.
We have to rewrite the bylaw. We can't just screw the bylaw.
Well, I'm talking from the perspective there of a resident, right? If it comes to feeding my kids with a couple of hens, and who knows what's gonna happen with this whole COVID situation.
Are we
So
gonna be able to get feed?
you can,
If we can't get stock for the groceries, are we gonna be able to get feed for the chicken?
feed is cheap for a chicken, and we have major suppliers here in Dawson Creek. So, yeah, feed is not an issue. But then you have eggs and meat to feed your family with. You know, perhaps I'm being over dramatic during this current pandemic situation we find ourselves in, but I'm not opposed to the concept of having backyard chickens. I'm not.
I am. Tony?
Well, I don't
You have anything
think
to say?
that there's a big deal about having chickens in the yard either. Yeah, I'm with you, Ken. I think that we're seeing unprecedented times. And we can see the clock rolling backwards where it may be necessary for survival to have a chicken or two in the backyard, right? Yeah, that's my view.
So you guys read this letter?
Yes.
Yes.
So this will be in the minutes, Chris?
Yep.
Will the resident's name be on it?
Yeah, it'll be there as presented.
Okay. I strongly believe what she has to say too.
I love her to death, right? I love her dearly, but we're all entitled to our opinion.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So we did that. 7.1 recommendation.
That council approved the letter drafted for the city of Prince George.
This is just correspondence.
That's,
Or is this a letter you wrote?
That was one of the letters council asked us to write here.
you know what, this is just a standard letter.
Yeah.
I don't see anything controversial in this at all.
All in favor? All in favor. 7.2 recommendation.
That council approved the letter drafted for the district of Port Hardy.
Councilors?
Second.
Discussion. Same thing? All in favor? 7.3 recommendation.
That council approved the letter drafted for the North Winds Wellness Center.
Can I second?
Second.
Discussion. And what are we going to discuss?
I like the letter.
You like the letter?
Yeah.
It's to the point. All in favor? The council, or 7.4 recommendation?
That council approved the letter drafted for the Wilderness Committee.
Can I second?
Second.
Discussion, same letter? All in favor?
I do appreciate the wording, right? You can't make ventilator tubes from solar panels or windmills, but you sure can make them from petrochemical products, right?
Yes.
So new business, recommendation that council approve the sale of the public works equipment that is no longer needed. Can I have a seconder?
Second,
Discussion.
why is it no longer needed?
Is it needed?
Why?
Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Worship, I can speak to it. So the fuel skid, the councilor drove, we replaced that with a new fuel skid last year that met, I would say WCB, but I don't think that's the right set of legislation, so this one's redundant, we no longer need it. The mower deck doesn't fit any of the current fleet of tractors. The trackless angle plow, we've purchased a new one there, so that old one was getting pretty tired. The John Deere snow blower, we don't actually use it for anything, so despite the fact it still fits the tractor, we haven't hooked it up in a couple of years, so it's kind of just sitting there collecting dust for the most part. The other mower deck, same problem, and then the hydraulic ditch mower, let me just refresh my memory on that one. Oh, that was for an older version of a trackless machine too, and it doesn't bolt up to anything right now, so. Part of the reason it's been sitting around is council does have to approve disposition of assets, and it's just, Blair actually brought these to my attention last year, and we just never did anything with them, so we got.
Where are they going?
Generally, for stuff like that, we put them up for public auction. And ordinarily, that's done by way of sealed bid, but considering the environment we're in right now, we're actually hoping to put it up for an online bid. So if council approves the disposition of them, we're gonna put them out there online, and we're gonna tell the public, we'll give them an email address, and we'll number them, and then say, if you're interested in bidding on this piece of equipment, you have up until such and such a date. Please indicate the number you want to bid, how we can get a hold of you, and the price that you bid, and highest bid wins.
So what are we selling this stuff for?
First bid's like $1. So,
First bid's like $1. Really?
yeah.
Shouldn't there be a minimum?
We could. Yeah, it's up to you guys. If you want us to put a minimum of $100 or something.
I think a minimum of $100.
Yeah.
I mean, how much does stuff go for at the auction, right? What's the appraised value of this stuff?
And
Why
that's
isn't the
the-
snow blower here?
That's the thing. We could try and.
Wasn't there a picture of the snow blower? Or is that that big thing there?
Yeah, snow blowers on page 21.
And we don't use that?
No. Haven't hooked it up in years. I've been here 3.5 years. We've never hooked it up once, and from what I understand from some of the staff, it's been 4 or 5 years before this since we've used that too. So the John Deere's got one of the sweeper things now that we use on the sidewalks. It's way faster, way more efficient, and we got a bucket and angle blade for it as well. We literally don't use this.
And what is this equipment offer, Chris?
Various things, and you can see some of it's the paint's peeling. It's
Yeah.
pretty old. Some of the stuff we've had for years and years.
We should just put the gas tank up, not the hydrant.
So when do you wanna do this? Like, when do you wanna put this out for tender?
As soon as possible.
They're cleaning up the yard.
Yeah, we're cleaning up the yard, and we've been kind of doing projects to clean up the yard over the last couple of years here too. So
So what venue are you going to use to advertise?
probably just online, Council Drawer.
Any particular site?
PC?
No, not through an auction site, because we'll end up getting charged a fee. Our hope is to just sell it ourselves over the website.
Our website?
Yeah, we'll probably, like I said, we'll probably list it on the website, and then list one of the general email addresses, and we'll post a notice that there's some small equipment up for auction, and anybody interested in bidding, go to the website, take a look. If you really want to bid, click on the link, fire us an email with the price, and
So,
Do you want to do a motion?
yeah, but I wanna play with it,
You want to play with it?
the motion.
Oh.
not the mower.
I would make the motion that every item here has a minimum bid of $100. Part 2 of that motion
is that every dollar raised from this online auction goes towards a local food bank.
Can I have a second on that?
Second.
Good.
Discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have something to say? Do you have something to say?
Oh, I just think that could be an awesome little thing to do.
All in favor? Woo! There you go.
Thank you.
Can that be possible, Chris, that we donate that money to?
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Correspondence, bylaw officer. 9.1.
That council received the reports from the bylaw animal control officer as information.
Okay. Can I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
We're gonna do that for all correspondence.
9.5, Marlon? Do you want to do 9.5?
9.5. Oh. That council received the correspondence from Indigenous Awareness Canada as information.
Second.
Discussion on that, or?
I thought that was very interesting.
So, do we need to do something, Chris, for this, or?
Sorry, Your Worship, I was just flipping
It's
ahead.
the Indigenous,
Okay, let me
or should we put this on the website so that people know
Oh,
that?
yes. Yeah, be happy to put it on the website if it's something you guys would like to do.
So, Chris, or can I have a motion for me to do that? Do you put this on?
I move that we place that on our website.
Can I have a second? Second. All in favor? Okay, so, anything else? No? Okay, 10, resolution 9, 11 bylaws for review, 11.1.
That council reviewed bylaw number 87025, water utility rates and regulations as requested at the January 22nd, 2020 council meeting.
Second.
Discussion? No discussion?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to maybe refresh council's memory here, you guys had asked us to bring this back at the same meeting where we discussed the tax rate adjustments or that. So if you're wondering why it's on here, it was because there were questions around whether or not we could amend the water and sewer rates. So we brought this back for information. So if you guys are content with the tax rates that you've set, then there's no action on this. It's just for info.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chris. So, no change. Administration reports. 12.1 CAO report. Chris?
Thank you, Worship. Just wanted to maybe add one quick thing to that. We've had, and for Councilor Grover's information, representative from Ovintiv, if I'm going to get that name correct, formerly in Canada. They've reached out to us asking to
the mayor.
who forwarded over to me about doing a donation to the food bank. So we've provided them the food bank's contact information.
Very nice.
Nice.
There you go.
That was supposed to be a surprise for you.
Oh.
Chris ruined it.
Well, I'm delightfully surprised. Thank you.
Yeah, and then just one more maybe for the camera too, just to put the residents' mind at ease. We've been getting a ton of phone calls about water and stuff like that. We're on top of it, doing the best we can. We've got one property right now that appears there's maybe been a little water in the house, but for the most part, to my knowledge, no other properties have been severely impacted. We've been able to stay on top of it. So.
And can you also explain about the fire ban that we have on, because there's one certain resident that seems to want to attack me consistently and think I'm stupid online.
Okay, yeah, the fire ban is super straightforward, Your Worship. There's a provincial order in place, no fires. So.
And that has been extended.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, as is the provincial state of emergency, which has been extended to April 28th. Yeah.
And I believe it's into June, isn't it, for the fire ban?
Don't know the dates on that off the top of my head, but yeah, it's definitely in effect right now.
And we also can't put people in to get fire permits if we did lift the ban.
Yeah, we had come up prior to the ban, we had come up with a roundabout way to do it, but at some point right now, it's not an option anymore, so.
What about that culvert grade going down by the school?
Oh, so that, we're not 100% sure what's happened there yet underground, Councilor Grover. There's a culvert that runs under the Nodes property from the back, from the rail yard. It catches all the water that comes off of the area in behind 49th and Elevator Road. It funnels into the rail yard and then under the tracks, under the Nodes property, under the highway, and then under that little gas station, the little gas compressor shack or whatever it is. We think somewhere just past there, the culvert is actually plugged and the water has then come out, and it's managed to come out next to there's a shutoff valve there, a water main shutoff valve, so somehow it's come out there. What we're seeing come out of the ground is literally the pressure from all of that water up in behind pushing down, so it's the gravity pressure.
Well, it's
same thing.
destroyed the parking lot of the school.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
that's-
are we gonna pay for that, or does the school
Yeah, we'll
pay for
fix
that?
it.
Insurance, that being
We'll fix
insurance.
Something like that, Councilor Grover, we just gotta take the backhoe in there, back blade it up a bit, there won't be a big cost, we'll fix that. Really, it's not necessarily our issue, something's happened down there. We are, of course, aware of it, there's barricades and we're checking that a couple of times a day.
That's not our issue.
As far as the break and the damage goes, legally, the municipality is not responsible for a sewer break or something like that. It's considered a municipal infrastructure failure. Usually that falls on the party's property insurance. But in this case, like I say, all we gotta do is just backblade the parking lot for an hour or so to fix it.
What about for clearing the blockage?
And that's it. Right now, considering the pressure, the director and I talked about it today again, and we've agreed we've got to let the water run its course before we can even dig it up, because we're concerned if we dig it up, we're going to take the volume that's there now and make it worse. So we're going to
How far does the culvert go underneath the road?
quite far, Your Worship.
Yeah. So do we have
that's a
Get
long
the Ministry of
culvert.
Transportation involved?
We may, yeah. So depending on, we'll dig it up because where it's coming out is definitely inside our jurisdiction, but we don't know how far up the break may be. That break could be 20 feet up and under the highway, and so until we start investigating it, it is what it is right now, so.
And do we contact P&G because of that shack that's there?
They were already out there, yeah.
They were always
Yeah,
there.
and I know the ministry's actually been steaming culverts too. I've seen them in town the last 2 days, the contractors for the ministry, and there's been a truck going around, so they're trying to alleviate the water on the highway by steaming their stuff too.
So what is the role our public works playing there with regards to culverts?
We're responsible for all of the residential culverts and stuff in town, the stuff under the highway, and up to roughly the inside edge of the sidewalk is part of the ministry's corridor. So the grates on, the one we're having issues with right in front of the real estate office, for example, that's the ministry's grate to fix and steam that. We can't touch that one. So.
Okay, because equally of concern, drove to work the other morning and going around our U-turn here in front of Papa John's, it was ice, it was sheer ice. And that water the flow is not working.
No.
Right? It's creating a hazard. And I don't know who's liable if there was an accident to happen as a result of the water going onto the highway. Is it a highway's problem?
Right.
And another concern with that water and freezing over is that we have trucks that go through here with who knows what they're hauling and hit that ice. Like, we're always concerned about something happening with those trucks, but that is adding exponential concern. And it seems like it's that ditch and the culvert going in to the highway again. That's all frozen.
Wood Street, over Wood Street.
Yeah.
Right by the
51st.
Cremette?
Yeah,
That road, yeah.
yeah.
I see the water always
Side
pouring
notes.
off of there. I always see the water pouring. Crazy.
Yeah,
Thanks. So it's starting to get a little bit better now, but we run into virtually every season, there's about a 2-week period, at least that I've seen anyways in my time, where everything we do in an 8-hour day becomes redundant by about 6 p.m. Because what we have is, due to the weather, we've got +5 during the day, a little bit of surface water melts, and then, you know, a couple hours after quitting time, it goes down to -2, hits -10 overnight. That's when all of that water freezes solid, and then by 10 o'clock the following morning it's moving again, but it melts on the surface. So then it starts to run over the culverts, over the driveways, all of that stuff, and we deal
But
with
we
that.
didn't even, Chris, we didn't even have that like that when it flooded.
Well, and
So-
it's year by year, right? Sometimes it affects some areas more than others. We've noticed key areas, you know, over by 47th, for example, in front of the Legion and the Hart Hotel. That's a consistently problem area. We're always on top of that one and some of the others, but it's, you know, so I know for a fact, even in the last month or so, there have been days where Public Works has literally been up to their thighs in freezing cold water, steaming culverts all day, only to leave 2 hours after they're done work. Everything they touch is frozen solid all over again. So it's, you know, unfortunately, that's something Blair and the Director of Public Works and I did talk today. We're thinking we might try and change the snow clearing process a little bit next year. So prior to 2017, we just left it, right? And we did have a lot of floods that year. In 2016, I remember, you know, signing checks for $28,000 of emergency culvert steaming by contractors. And I said, this is
Spring of
ridiculous.
17.
There's-
That was spring of 17.
Because that's, yeah, spring of 17, yeah. I said, this is ridiculous. We're doing something wrong here. This doesn't make sense. So that same winter was when we started doing the scoop out the key areas with the backhoe to make sure that the ditch was at least empty, so that as the thaw happened, there was an initial place for things to move. That had a huge impact. That year, I was told, was the first one where we didn't have umpteen houses in town flooding up, and of course, we didn't incur any of those costs, so we saved like 28 grand. But what we're still realizing now is the problem with the ditches, and it's a very simple, you know, water movement system, is when we plow the streets, we roll the snow off over into the ditch as the place to put, you know, snow from A to B to clear the road. And we're realizing as it's rolling over, it's hitting there and it's freezing, and so you end up with a ditch that's supposed to be 3 feet deep. Well, it's actually got another 3 or 4 feet of snow on top of it. So it's got to try and absorb all of that load and move it down. So the director and I were talking, maybe we can still improve on this process again. So this winter, what we're going to try is to take the blade we bought has double wings. So we're going to try taking the snow from the road, and we're going to do it like a parking lot. And so for center town, as an example, we're going to take everything from center town, we're going to go up, we're going to shove it over railway onto the rail yard, and then we're simply going to come along and we're going to load all of that snow out and haul it off to our snow dump. And what we're hoping is that'll keep the snow from the road out of the ditches, further minimizing the amount of snow load that's going to be in the ditch for spring melt. And we're hoping that that might be something that'll alleviate even the little issues we're having right
I'm
now.
glad you guys are trying something.
Yeah, so to our knowledge, nobody's tried that before, and we don't think it's going to be tremendously more, you know, more time consuming, because to go out, try and scoop out a ditch with a clumsy backhoe, foot by foot, move and raise the things and lower them is quite cumbersome. We think with that loader, if we're able to sort of separate town into quadrants, and okay, all of this quadrant snow goes up there. Once it's done, we switch the blade to the bucket for the loader, which we've got. It's a huge bucket, so we can literally take an entire quadrant's worth of snow, and in 5 dump truck loads, it's gone. And then none of the road snow is actually still sitting in the neighborhoods. So our thought is that that's really going to have an impact, and we're going to try it this year and see how it goes.
Thank you. Action items, guys. You see anything? Looks fine to me. And we don't have council directed, like the buddy bench, did we order it or anything?
No, your worship, we still haven't gotten on that one yet, so that's just about the last outstanding item there.
And capital special projects? Chris?
Thank you, Worship. Maybe to speak to a few of those too. As you guys know, our staff are concerned with the future, as are the staffs of a lot of the other municipalities. We've seen layoffs in some of our neighbors and stuff, so we've been talking internally about taking some of the projects that had been earmarked for contractors and stuff like that and doing them by staff to keep them busy this summer. In light of the fact that we closed the parks and stopped the festivals and stuff, that's actually taken a significant amount of hours off of our staff duties. Not necessarily just for the summer students, but for the regular full-time staff.
All right, so we still consider, so.
My concern with the entire situation economically growing in the entire world is we are supposed to be responsible for an entire village. Our employees are important, but I think that spending significant amounts of money, and again, it comes back to my old record of using that fair share and connecting it to a budget, and where it's hard to differentiate what's going on with the amount of money that we get. And in these times, we really should be shifting gears and trying to address some of the issues that are in Pouce could be structurally, and looking at how we're going to make this work within this village. If that fair share disappears, where's our village? And people have entrusted councils, many councils, to ensure that this village not only was the first little place here in 1932, but that it keeps on going.
There was people here before that.
Yeah. But that it just keeps going.
So can we go through these, Chris?
Absolutely, Your Worship, and that's part of the reason we really haven't actioned any of these intentionally for that reason, given the, aside from the side-by-side. The side-by-side is really
That was
what we want.
necessary.
And when is that coming?
Yeah, that, I think the director said they told him about 2 weeks for that to come in. But I know I'm getting calls from Urban Systems, and you know, they're reaching out to me, hey, you know, we've still got this stuff on the books, and we've got to start doing our planning. You know, when do we do it? And I've been telling them the bylaw's not approved yet. I just want to make absolutely certain that my council is still comfortable with the stuff they approved 2 months ago when the world wasn't falling apart. So, you know, but I can't disagree with you either, Councilor Hebert. You know, when we look at the fair share of the Peace River Agreement money as a percentage of the village's total revenue, it's in excess of 50%.
Yeah.
So, you know, if those funds, you know, were to disappear for whatever reason, our solvency would be seriously in question. We've got significant reserves, and you guys have seen me mention that to you in the budget presentation. You know, we can weather, you know, a short term, and I say short term meaning 12, 24 month interruption in income due to the fact that we've got good savings and absolutely no debt. So we're a lot better than somebody like the city of Vancouver, who publicly announced that they're potentially in an insolvency situation right now. You know, but long term, you know, and as a function of our taxes would have to quintuple in order to, literally quintuple in order to make up for a Peace River Agreement shortfall.
And is that reasonable? No, it's not.
That was up to you guys, huh?
It's not reasonable.
Let's look at these. So the hot water tank upgrades, that's a necessity for
Yes.
for the post office, that's a necessity. The village siding, I'm sure we could hold off on the village siding.
The siding was actually for the old library.
Oh, okay, because it says village building.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Old library.
The thing about the village siding at that
Needs painting.
old building is that it's been ignored for so long. It's incredible.
Chris?
And that was actually specifically one of those projects I've been talking to the director of public works about having staff do. So we've got 2 staff members who basically said they're comfortable, you know, going up on a man lift and doing that painting project this summer if it's the difference between working or not. And you know, maybe
And it's not raining.
you know, yeah. When we sat down and did this list, all was good in the hood.
Exactly.
Nothing, you know. And I distinctly remember us having a conversation. It may even have been you that brought it up, and you asked me point blank and said, "Well, Chris, why can't staff do this stuff?" And my answer was, "Well, because they're busy doing all of their day-to-day things. We can't fit in a 2-week project where I pull people away from parks maintenance for 2 weeks and have them paint a building." But you know, last council meeting, we closed the parks, we canceled the festivals. That's a huge amount of freed up time on the, you know,
That's $40,000.
for a maintenance staff person, you know, a maintenance person. So now, looking at the workload of those folks, we've got time to spend 2 weeks painting a building if we've only got to cut the grass in the parks once every second week. So, you know, it seems to make sense. So we're looking at the list from that context. But absolutely, folks, if there's anything in this list right now that you just want to say, no, you know what, let's tighten our belt for the last run. We don't, not only do we not want to contract this out, we don't want staff to do it either. Let's just put it off to another year when times are better. Totally open to that. It's your budget, guys.
Well, I think, this is just me. The hot water tank is important, the old library siding, staff will be doing that. Remove dead trees from the Pouce Park. That's a liability issue, so that needs to be done.
Could we not do that?
No, we don't have a certified faller.
Yeah.
We have a certified chainsaw operator, but he's not a certified faller.
You must have a ticket for that, eh?
No, not even a full arrest ticket.
Actually, Uncle Les is a ticketed faller, and so is Red Merrick. So those would be some people to reach out to.
Ooh, yes.
Public Works upgrade internally, is that consist of, Chris?
That was some of our public works policies, some of the I'm trying to remember it now. Not the working alone, but policies of that nature, safety type policies that the director feels we don't have but we should have. And the 5,000 is really there to run them by legal once we've kind of done our draft. So.
And we've paid for the needs assessment already?
Nope, I just got the email from the PRRD about that today. I saw it in my inbox, but I haven't had time to read it yet. So I believe that's been approved at the PRRD board level, and they're looking for our in or out response right now.
And do you guys want me to still go in that? Because he's got to answer that email.
Pull that up right now.
That's for the seniors funding?
That's for all of it, Your Worship. So that housing needs assessment was meant to look at all levels of housing in whatever identified region.
Homeless.
Yeah, everywhere from, you know, short-term rental housing and apartment complexes right up to, you know, seniors housing and all that stuff. So.
I think we're going to see significant changes.
Well, the regional district's doing it, so they'll reach out to everybody. So do you approve him to give them an email for the $5,000 to do the needs assessment, or do we hold off, or not worry about us having a seniors home?
I can't find the email right now. I saw it today. Yeah, I'll look for it, folks.
Yeah. This whole system is.
It's up in the air, isn't it?
Why do we need someone else to tell us that we
I
have
don't
a need
know.
for seniors housing and give them $5,000?
I have no idea.
I've actually got the answer to that, and it's not a pleasant one.
But I'll tell you what, we have the need for seniors housing. Give me a check for 5,000.
And that's actually what it comes down to, Councilor Drover. There's
Urban Systems is doing it.
Urban Systems was going to handle it, but the province of BC, through BC Housing, initiated a whole series of housing grants. So,
And to get the grants.
to get the grants, you have to have a professionally completed housing needs assessment confirming a need for a specific type of housing in order to apply for the grant. No needs assessment, automatically disqualified for the grant.
Oh.
All right. I need senior housing. All right. I want to kind of take that avenue and curtail it into my report because it somehow jives. Somehow.
Okay. Draft development procedure, can you enlighten us on that again, Chris?
That one was, that was the development procedures manual that was going to take a lot of the stuff that's in our building bylaws right now and put it in one easy to read place so that we don't have property developers coming up to us anymore and saying, oh, I didn't know I needed a plumbing permit.
So, this is already in the budget, right?
Yeah. And if actually there's one that I might really strongly suggest it from a staff standpoint, I think we really need that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you can do that one?
That one I have to do in consult with a professional, somebody that understands the building code.
Yeah, so there's 15,000, which would be Devon, right?
That'll be probably
Or urban
partly urban, yeah.
Okay, and we don't need the boundary extensions right now? But we do need 2 zoning bylaw updated?
I do know Urban Systems is actively working on the boundary extension, though. You guys have communicated to them earlier in the year that it was a go, yeah.
Okay. So the zoning bylaw will go with that?
That one we can actually push off to another year.
And the zoning bylaw?
Yeah, although the amendments in the zoning bylaw aren't significant, they're still important. We wanted to rewrite the zoning bylaw to be a little bit more user-friendly and then also change some of the language around CCAN storage containers there, but nothing in that. That was just a wish list project because we thought, we can make this better. That wasn't specifically because something came up and caused us to react and say, oops, problem, we gotta change this. So that one's not.
So that can hold on.
That we can hold off.
Okay. Fire hydrant upgrades, that's a necessity.
Yeah.
Senior survey, $500, what was that for, Chris?
That was a project suggested by Councillor Smith. She wanted to reach out to seniors a little more in depth and say, folks, your residents, what would you like to see in the community? And really this was just to...
Does Councillor Smith realize that her portfolio is not seniors, it's Marlene's?
I'm not sure, Your Worship, that's something you have to ask her, but I remember her spearheading this project in, in
I don't remember
discussions.
I do.
Was that here?
Yes.
I don't remember it.
I do as well.
Because this is seniors is your portfolio. Did you want to hand your seniors portfolio over to Barb?
No.
Okay. So we'll have to have that discussion with Barb when she gets back here. Okay.
The coolers, Your Worship, those could actually maybe wait.
I was just
The ones we had, we just repaired them, they're still running.
Okay.
We could maybe agree internally that if one craps out, then we replace it, but
But do we know how long it'll take to get it here?
not long. We've actually looked in the coolers we were considering purchasing and fulfill that project. We're just online. We just order them up a couple of weeks to get them delivered and we're done, so not long ago. And I believe there was actually a company in Fort St. John that sold them to if we needed to go something quicker, so we'll push that off to 2021?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the sidewalk for the museum, well, that's a must because that's a liability issue. I mean, it's not going to probably be open for a while anyway, but.
And I'm actively working with the engineers for the tender right now too. They're just waiting for some measurements for that to finish it up. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a liability issue, but it would definitely improve the user experience at the museum for sure.
Pave Elevator Road? No, not right now. We can't afford an engineering assessment. You guys agree?
I agree.
Ken?
I don't disagree.
Okay. Stand-up desks, not right now.
No.
Utility vehicles already been here. Poultry's house has already received the $40,000.
Yeah,
Skateboard landscaping?
That has to,
we have a contractual obligation to
Yeah,
to
that's
finish that.
because the mud just gets up on.
Yeah.
yeah.
And a fireworks bylaw. We need that. I know exactly when it's fireworks.
I'm not feeling
we do that off.
consensus here, can we?
My dog starts vibrating about an hour before fireworks.
Yeah.
So what do you wanna say in the fireworks bylaw?
Buy a permit, you're liable. You burn someone's house down, you're liable, buddy. Or her.
So the bylaw officer's already started working on that. I haven't really talked to him about it in maybe a couple of months now, but he already started getting some from other municipalities and language from the province. That's another one of those projects that it may not hit the $2,500 mark. That amount was just there to run our draft through legal before it goes to you guys to make sure.
Like, I don't care if people have fireworks, but let the village know so the residents know what to do with their animals, right? At least let the residents be aware that you're having fireworks.
You can have noiseless fireworks.
Well, you tell me where you can buy noiseless fireworks.
Well, Jay, you know what? I will look
Because
into
Amazon
it.
right now, it's only PPPs that we.
Noiseless fireworks. I will find out where you can get them.
Right.
Because you have people with autism and animals who are adversely affected. I'm sure there's some other situations as well. And many places have gone to the noiseless fireworks with great success.
Technology.
Yes.
Gotta love it.
Fire hazard. And,
But if they have a burning or a permit,
yeah, but they're just looking after their own property. And then you have fireworks. I've seen fireworks where the fire has ended up
In the
down
couch.
the back alley and starting the grass on fire. How interesting. Not their problem.
And that's part of what's likely gonna come back in that bylaw for you too, Councillor Hebert, is, you know, what's the size, what's the scale of the fireworks, how far do you have to be from a residential area, where in town you can shoot them, all of that stuff. And that is absolutely an option to you, if you wanna go that route. So
I
it's
think
gonna
that's an
depend,
option. I think that's what we should be doing.
you know,
Yes.
It's,
Just consideration, just shooting them off at 11 o'clock at night, nobody's even aware.
so maybe even before I start spending too much time on that, maybe we'll bring that back again for a motion of council, because Councillor Drover seems to support fireworks. You guys know 3 out of 5 determines whether or not it's a yay or nay, and then if it's a yay,
What
then
about Canada First fireworks?
That's us though, we're responsible for it, and the fire department are far behind it.
yeah, it wouldn't necessarily apply to us for special events.
Oh, it only applies
To the residents.
Oh.
Yeah. Who do we sound like, right? Yes, that just did come out of my mouth, and no, I can't take it back.
When we hold events, we can look into the quiet ones, but the big boom is always a special one.
But yeah, first step there would just be to get a consensus of council as to whether or not it's a yay or nay.
Yeah, it's a name. The sidewalks, can we just put off this year? Do we need to have them in this year?
We can. So the sidewalks up to the elementary school are shovel ready at this point. Urban's just waiting for me to give them the green light to issue the tender. But like I mentioned earlier, I've told them, don't do anything preemptively, because last year when we'd gone through this list with council, I'd gone to them before the budget bylaw and said, yeah, we need to have these ready for the construction season, go. So there might be a small amount of cost allocated towards the sidewalks, just in terms of them to prepare the draft and stuff like that, but not the whole construction. So they've told me that it's shovel ready. If you guys want to do it 2021 instead of this year, not a problem. All the groundwork, the plans, the surveying, everything's been done, it's ready to go. So easily pushed. And with this too, folks, we're in an uncertain time right now. We can push any of this out to 2021 on paper. It's a shovel-ready project. If middle of July comes along and the world's back to normal and yep, things are okay, you guys can direct us with a simple motion to say 2021 project, Chris, get it done this year. Done. we move forward with it. So, you know, we can push it out. The problem with the sheet as it's written is once you guys approve it, if it's in the 2020 column, I'm required to start working. You've given me clear direction, Chris, get this done this year. If it's in 2021, I don't have to worry about it as much, but you can tell me as long as I have time. I mean, you tell me on October 1st, hey, we want to do sidewalks. Sorry,
Yeah,
we kind of ran out of time.
We have to worry about it this spring again.
Yeah. So-
That, the sidewalk, I think is a safety issue for those kids walking to school. And that's why we had decided to do it. And
It's just $100,000, I think.
I realize that, but I think a kid getting hit by a car, it's so worth it to have that sidewalk. I know. It pains me to say, but I don't want to see somebody get hurt. And like I said, the lighting, the snowfall.
Well, the lighting in Pouce is just terrible.
But it's because there's no lights. You can't see the kids that, once they leave from in front of Redwood and then they get walking.
Well, even by my house,
So
in the
they
winter,
get-
I don't see them because they're all dressed in black. And
They're all dressed dark, and then if you're having a heavy snow, like there have been times that I've hit that corner and realized there's kids standing there now. Then you gotta keep going, but something's going to happen. I'm sure.
Kim?
We, this will be the third time that we've revisited sidewalks. And I
We
tried
just
to
don't
get,
want to spend that
I tried to get it thrown out before and was overturned. And, you know, so be it. That's the nature of council. So as far as I'm concerned, this particular issue we've already addressed. How many times do we want to bring it up? before
Okay,
we
so
put it
let him
in?
go ahead and do it.
You know, I prefer not to, but I think council has expressed the desire to get it done.
Okay. There you go, Chris. Upload emergency response fund, that's a must. Upload chart of accounts, you need that.
Yeah, that we need to do.
And the tourist video is already on the go.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 23?
There's no number coming.
No number 23 in theirs?
What's your say, Kat?
Oh, there's
Can I raise?
a contract renegotiation coming up this year, is there not?
For what?
For the local representing that.
Yep, the
Community.
union, yep, the union's up this year.
Is there any opportunity for, say, a local official to sit in on that bargaining committee?
I'll have to look into that, Councillor Drover.
I'd be interested.
Okay.
There wasn't when we first.
I participated in the ones in Tumble Ridge as a second staff member when they renewed in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, and there wasn't any political presence, but I'm not sure if that means that they're not supposed to, or if it's, I just don't, I'm not clear on it, so I can definitely look into it.
You're saying political reference, that's not necessarily an accurate depiction of my desire to be a part of that. I was, for 8 years, a member of the senior executive of the Steelworkers 9113.
Interesting, okay.
So that's Quintet and Tumber Ridge.
Okay.
So I think when it comes to negotiating an effective collective agreement, I have many years of experience that would benefit both sides.
Okay.
So, do you want that on your, put that on his,
Portfolio?
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Can I have it all in favor? Sure. And a second?
Yes.
Maureen? Okay. Capital special program, none, council calendars, well, there isn't anything because just ERD. Councilor White's not here, Councilor Smith's not here, Councilor Hebert, nothing. Councilor Grover? Not lost. Can I go? Wow.
I know.
basically, one is a question and the second is an idea. First question, what is the status of our community's compost pile?
Chris?
Status in what regard?
Is it accessible to residents?
Yes.
So we just,
No, it's not.
Technically, right now, no, because they've got to come get the key from town hall here.
so is there a limit to how much compost we can get?
How much compost we can get?
Well, are we doing a curbside composting, is that what you're?
Well, I'm thinking of just getting some compost material to throw in my my vegetable garden to give it some oomph. Right?
Yes. So, easy workaround there would be that if somebody was interested in going in, probably phone the front counter, just the general line. We can make arrangements to go outside, put the key in the box, have citizen pick
But
it up.
aren't they signing something?
Generally speaking, we were having them do that, but really, you know,
Well,
I mean,
I
we
think
can take the information and who it is over the phone. The only reason we were doing that was to prevent scenarios where, oh, here's the key, and we don't know who's going in there, and next thing you know, we do an inspection that week, and there's a whole bunch of tires or whatever, you know, stuff that shouldn't be in there.
Like there was last time,
Like
that's
there
why
was,
we
yeah,
had
so we've,
people signing for the key.
yeah, we've already had an incident of that, unfortunately, but it's been few and far between. Most folks, when we speak to them, you know, the ladies at the front counter are very descriptive and, okay, here's, you know, what you can't put in there, and as far as we know, people have been really, really good about it. I don't know how good the material would be from a, you know, garden compost, because most of what ends up going in there is wood and yard waste and branches and stuff. It's not the eggshells and leftover lettuce from Caesar salad that you put in your backyard compost that makes that really nice soil, so.
Well, that's really good to know because I'm effectively doubled my vegetable garden for this year because I need all the stuff to feed to the chickens.
Yes. And we add to that too, it's not all compost material, so we do go in there with the equipment and roll it over.
Yeah.
So there is the clay that's on the ground and stuff. I don't, if you're looking for that nice nutrition-rich compost that feeds a garden real well, I don't think you'd find it down there, Councilor Grover. It's not quite that good.
No, and what a waste because you know, in my mind, and I'm thinking in residents' mind, a compost pile for their backyard garden with something is valuable and, you know, sought after.
Well, we used to sell them, didn't we? We used to sell those bins.
No,
I
Yeah,
mean,
but
we
who
could
could be
think-
residents if they have a garden, they have compost?
Yeah. We used to sell them. So should we maybe think about selling them again for people? But, I mean, you can't get in the office to do that kind of stuff. And
Were we making money on it?
No, I think there was an encouragement.
Well, I don't want us to lose money on it, but if you know, if that's something that we've offered in the past and can, you know, say, hey, we have some available, if you're interested, let us know and we'll order them. I don't know. Motion. Motion for us to purchase one compost?
investigate
Investigate.
investigate.
the feasibility of a municipal compost program.
Derek. Purchase.
Second,
Marlene? All in favor?
Okay, so that was number one, that was the question.
Okay.
I know, I'm sorry. But this idea hit me, and I'm thinking it's a rough idea, and we need the benefit of council collectively to explore it, to see if it's even worth going anywhere.
What?
Well, you know, Pouce, Coupe, we're a growing community. I think we're very proud of our BC heritage, we're very proud to be Canadian, and that's reflected in our Canada First, July 1st celebration, Canada. And Pouce Coupe is known as the center of celebration of Canada. So I think there's a very strong national pride in Pouce Coupe as well. And you hearken back
Not that I recall the words of JFK, no, you know, can we do for you, but what can you do for your country? And, you know, what can Pouce, is there anything that Pouce can do for our country? And I'm thinking, you know, where do we align with the federal national agenda? And we have a desire to grow. We have a desire to expand our community. We have a desire for first-rate education. We have a desire to welcome people with skills into our community. And I'm thinking, you know, there's an untapped resource which is nothing but a benefit to us, to the location, to the area in general, of these immigrant families, hardworking, skilled people, many with very high education, right, standards and backgrounds, and maybe from their war-torn conflict area, they would welcome a place to come and call home. And is that something, as Pouce Coupians, we're willing to provide? A house, a shelter, a
Well,
place
we're
for
not
the
paying for
kids.
them a house, we'll,
Well, you know, the federal government is paying to put them up. Maybe the federal government will assist us in developing a subdivision for these people.
so do you want, staff to, you want to put a motion on the floor for staff to investigate on that?
Well, we have Bob Zimmer. He's our representative. I think we should go through him, I would think. I don't know. But that's just my thoughts. I'm not as smart as all of you. But is there a need? Can we meet the need? Is there a desire from Ottawa to see this happen and have these people become, you know, productive Canadian citizens?
I think that'd be awesome.
I mean, the skill that is there, the knowledge that is there. I don't know how to emotion that.
Chris, how would you like that motion?
I'm actually thinking there was recently a federal program about that, where the immigration minister launched a rural,
Didn't they announce that at FCM when we were down?
yeah, I believe there might have been something at FCM too. It was rural immigration, and I know Vernon was specifically mentioned, so I think if you guys want me to try and get some information on that, I might try and reach out to them, because I specifically remember them being mentioned in an article I read about it, and it
Well,
was...
the government, wasn't the government just putting them there and the residents weren't happy about it?
No, not necessarily. I think what was happening was that the federal government was noticing that a lot of the immigration that tended to happen, those folks were sort of moving to the cities, and they were saying, hey, there's a lot of Canada aside from Vancouver and Toronto, you know, so I think it had something to do with that, and approaching recent immigrants and saying, hey, there's a lot of Canada out there interested in moving somewhere that's not, you know, Vancouver. So yeah, I can make a few calls and see.
So the
what
motion
you got.
is that you will phone Vernon
Get some
and get some
information.
information and bring it back to council for us,
For the next meeting?
for the next meeting?
That's a
Is
little
there-
tight in the timeline, but I'll see what I can do. Maybe give me 30 days, please, guys. I gotta wrap up.
Okay,
I
well,
gotta
yeah,
wrap up the budget
no,
for
give
next
us that.
meeting.
In 6 weeks, we wanna see it in 30 days.
And in
okay?
addition to crunching taxes, I got a couple of adjustments I gotta make here.
All in favor?
Thank you very
Bernie
much.
seconding that, and it's all in favor.
And you guys rock for your money to the local food bank. That is so appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mine is not, I just have concern about Courtney at the school. It looks like they're not too happy with her being there early. So can you reach out to the school district?
I did actually bump into the librarian yesterday, just ironically enough out at the newly formed water spout and especially drove by.
We should just put it in the water fountain.
Bellagio of Pouce.
I also bumped into a member of the RCMP who I offered to refill his water bottle and he didn't take me up on it. Nice guy, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I know she's still working, so I can find out. Actually, that might be something best handled by the liaison, your worship, if it's a library matter.
Absolutely,
Can you reach out to her and see what's going on?
for sure.
See how the school board feels about that, maybe reach out to Chad
Okay.
Anderson. And then also the sign, you can make sure that sign gets moved, because I reached out to them and it doesn't seem to listen to me.
Okay.
And
So
then the
we-
gym needs to be cleaned, because the vents in the gym are disgusting.
Courtney, Chad, what else? The sign.
And clean the vents in the gym. The dirt looks like the,
So that would be the village's responsibility?
no, it's the gym. It's the school district 59's, it's the janitor's job.
So who might contact you there?
School district 59.
Okay.
I've got all the contact info for you, Ken.
Thank you.
And I had something, but it slipped my mind. So, I'm done. And we have an in-camera meeting, first section, no? How come that's on there?
Yeah, somebody
Advisory
else,
report?
somebody else asked me about that.
Morning.
Verizon report.
No, not anymore.
Motion.
No on camera.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn?